Google Hangouts, as you know, it takes about a minute to go live.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're live. Welcome, everybody, to Daniel's Star Trek cast. This is something that I don't normally do. And this is Daniel.
Hi, guys.
Daniel. Anyway, you just did. When did you do? You did a Daniel's Star Trek cast on Joe's show, right?
It was.
Nature's Lord.
It was this morning. I think it was like a Real Trekkies cast. As we called it, the Real Trekkies cast.
And so, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate Star Trek Beyond?
Probably a 4.
A 4? Yeah, I would give it a 3. I would say that it is the best of the Abrams films, but of course, me and you have different opinions on this. It's the best of the Abrams films, but in my opinion, it still sucks.
Yeah.
The story was very lackluster to me, and I feel like it was very lackluster to a lot of other fans. I know Joe was disputing this fact, but if you look at like the box office numbers, it just, for as much money as they spent on advertisement and promoting, and if you've been in LA like I have, you would have seen like all the buses used to have. They had huge posters on all the Metro buses that said Star Trek Beyond. They had huge billboards all over the place, and they did this all around the country. So they had to have spent probably $200 million promoting it. And so, in my opinion, I would consider it a bomb. And yeah, there's some countries like Israel where it hasn't played, but countries like Israel only have like 8 million population, and so even if it does very well there, it's only going to make like a few $1 million. It's not going to make that much money.
Yeah.
In my opinion, domestically, it's already played out. Usually, Star Trek does better domestically than it does, And I see here as of today a worldwide gross of 242 million. But they spent 185 million making it, and they probably spent another 200 million promoting it. And with that, just as a rough guesstimate. And so with that in mind, unless it gets to the $400 million mark, it's not going to make any money. And I just don't see, even if it plays in China, because I know this one doesn't have anything to do with time travel. Hold on, see, Star Trek Into Darkness. Let's see how well that did in China. Into Darkness. Foreign. Okay, let me give you an example. Star Trek Into Darkness, would you not agree, did better at the box office than Star Trek Beyond?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, Star Trek Into Darkness made $57 million in China.
Yeah.
So I would surmise that Star Trek Beyond, because of its lackluster script, I blame Simon Pegg for that. Its lackluster script, it's not going to do as well as Star Trek Into Darkness in China. So it might do another 30 million, but it's still not going to make its money back. Not if you include promoting costs.
No.
So I would argue that it's a bomb, and I'm not sure why they're even doing a fourth one. I guess because they just don't want to give up hope on the franchise. They've already invested so much money in it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. But yeah, I mean, I just didn't care for the story. The villain, his motivations weren't really that clear. He used to be a member of Starfleet, and then he encountered alien technology, and the alien technology mutated him, but that allowed him to live forever. So he just started killing people so he could live forever. Okay, but I mean, to me, if you were a Starfleet officer, you wouldn't be a captain of the Yorktown if you You wouldn't have been able to become a Starfleet officer if you lacked that much morality, in my opinion.
And he was a Mako. He was a Mako.
He was a Mako. Okay. I only saw it once, and I kind of got bored. There was a lot of parts in it that were really slow. But he was a Mako, but he was a Starfleet officer, correct?
I think that the Makos and the Starfleet are like separate.
Oh, okay. But he was a captain of the Yorktown, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he was a member of the Mako race, but he was a captain of the Yorktown, but then he abandoned the ship. And I found that to be incredibly unrealistic. That you have a ship that's been sitting there on the surface of the planet for 150 years, and Scotty whips it up into repair and gets it running within a couple of hours. I just found that unbelievable. I don't like Simon Pegg as a writer, and I'm starting to hate him as an actor. Just because I just don't like his depiction of Scotty. I think I'm actually going to do a video. I'm going to do, and it might irritate Joe, but I mean I respect Joe's opinion if Joe is listening in this future cast. There's one person watching us live, so hello live viewer. But the video top 10 reasons why Star Trek Beyond sucked, because it seems to be top 10 lists are very popular on YouTube, and I did a top 10 reasons not to vote for Donald Trump, and that's one of my more popular videos this year. So I'm going to start doing more top 10 videos, and you won't see my face in it. I'll just narrate it, and I'll put in graphics. But retaining to the subject, either video or graphics. But anyway, so you would say a 4. What didn't you like about it? I want you to express your opinions. I've been kind of dominating the conversation. Go ahead.
I just didn't like the story. It just didn't feel like the stakes were very high. The villain, I don't know. The villain seemed it wasn't as well fleshed out as the other two villains. You know, the threat wasn't big enough. It just seemed like a territorial dispute, kind of like Star Trek Insurrection. I don't know. It wasn't a bit. It felt like an episode. You know, it felt like an episode of Star Trek, which is okay. But I wanted the stakes to be higher. I wanted the villain to be better. It just wasn't big.
You wanted like an epic storyline worthy of a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. But I have problems with the baggage of the 2009 movie. For me personally, this movie also suffered from the baggage of 2009 Star Trek. I don't like the depiction of Spock. I viewed him as emo Spock, like he has a love spat with her. I didn't like that. I just didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't feel like Spock to me. I don't like Chekhov. I don't like the actor, the way he portrays Chekhov. I don't like Simon Pegg's portrayal of Scotty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like how it always focuses on just mostly Spock and Kirk, and everybody else is just a backdoor supporting character. That's not the way the original Star Trek was. The original Star Trek, her just feels like she's like the love interest of Spock who's been rejected by Spock, and she's like the jilted girl of the franchise. She doesn't feel like a main character of the franchise like she should, or her. And Spock is just terrible. Bones was a little bit Leonard McCoy was a little bit better in this one than in the last two movies, but still, it was just a really lackluster storyline, and I just didn't really care for it. I mean, the alien girl was kind of cool, but I harken back to season 2. I can't remember the name of the episode, but anybody who's a hardcore Star Trek fan will know what I'm talking about. Season 2 of Next Generation had an excellent episode where they were playing war games, and the Ferengi attack And it showed you the dynamics of starship design, because Star Trek, with its starship design, it's based on theoretical physics. Like, we could actually build a ship like this if we had an antimatter reactor, and we're willing to spend $50 billion building a spacecraft, which we're not willing to do today. And, it showed you the dynamics and how complicated starship design was, and how complicated it was to keep starships running in maintenance. And I loved how Geordi was on this 20-year-old starship, and he's trying to repair the warp drive, and he's got only fragments of the lithium crystals, and he's like, man, I'm not going to be able to get the warp drive back online. I can only get impulse power because I've got no antimatter. I got no antimatter feed. I've got no antimatter in the stream. And luckily for him, Geordi sneaks his science experiment on and allows them to generate antimatter for the warp drive. But because the lithium crystals have fragmented and have decayed, he's only able to get the warp drive online for a fraction of a second. But that's enough to escape from the situation and give the illusion that the ship was destroyed. And I just thought that was so the writing for that was so clever, and it was so interesting. You're like, wow, even a 20-year-old starship in a state of disrepair, it takes a lot of maintenance and a lot of talent just to keep the thing running, and a lot of spare parts. And so I keep thinking back to the episode, and I was like, that's incredibly unrealistic. They had no spare parts. The Enterprise is destroyed. It crashed on the surface, and they either get in escape pods or they beam out. And basically, they find a Yorktown, and they're able to whip it into shape with no spare parts, no outside support. Really unrealistic to me. What did you think about that?
I never saw. I thought it was. I thought it was like really just okay. I thought it was
a little bit contrived. Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, you got to think this is future technology, right? It probably lasts forever.
No, I disagree. I was trying to give you an example of season 2 of Next Generation, where they had a starship that was 20 years old, and the warp drive was in really bad shape, and they needed spare parts just to get it running. Yeah. And so before we move on to Star Trek Discovery, Daniel, do you have any other comments about Star Trek Beyond?
I'm kind of between I liked it and I hated it. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh boy, they really let us down. I mean, it didn't feel like a J.J. Abrams movie. That's why I like the first 2 movies. This movie didn't feel like a J.J. movie. If J.J. wasn't involved, the threat would have been much bigger. The stakes would have been higher. It would have been like Nero or Cumberbatch. I'm not going to call him Khan. I'm going to call him Cumberbatch. It would have been bigger, but unfortunately we got Justin Lin, which I remember at the time when they were talking about Star Trek Beyond, I was like, oh my god, they got Justin Lin. He's a Fast and Furious guy, but more to the point, I could not be when I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, this isn't a J.J. Abrams movie, and I know a lot of people.
It actually was a J.J. Abrams movie. He was the executive producer.
Yeah, I know, but it just didn't have his signature on it. He wasn't a director, so it felt like a Justin Lin movie.
Well, I don't like for the most part, I don't like Abrams' directing style. I don't like the lens flare. I was happy to not see the lens flare. That's the one thing that I liked about it better than Star Trek Into Darkness. There was no crappy lens flare that hurts my eyes, and especially if you had the misfortune of watching Star Trek Into Darkness in 3D like I did, that gave me like a migraine because of my prescription eyeglasses, and I was wearing the 3D glasses, and there was like lens flare in the movie, and the lens flare was in 3D, and it was piercing my eyeballs. And I'm like, man, do I need to wipe my glasses? Do I have something on my? Oh no, that's just J.J. Abrams' crappy directorial style. He thinks he's being cool and clever doing that. And I'm not one of those people that likes his lens flare. A lot of people, you can look up online, a lot of people that make fun of Abrams' directing style, the way he's handled Star Trek. They talk about how the Enterprise is an Apple Store with lens flare.
Yeah. It's just like
And,
I never
go ahead.
noticed that. I never noticed that. You know, I mean, I watched the movies a lot of times, like in the very beginning. But then
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I did a live podcast. Sorry about that. No, okay. You can charge your phone here. Okay. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that. My friend Karina was coming in. She's going to go next door to charge her phone. Anyway, she gave me.
like I was saying, well, I don't remember exactly. Okay. Oh, now I remember. You know when? Okay, I watched the movies a lot of times in the beginning, and I didn't notice the lens flares. It didn't bother me. It didn't. I did. Well, I did notice them, but it didn't bother me. But then when people started talking about it, how annoying it was, then it started bothering me. Isn't that weird? I mean, it doesn't bother you until someone says something about it. It's like, you know, like I needed that. I needed someone to say it for me to make that connection.
Well, yeah, maybe it's just a psychological suggestion. You should always have your own opinion, and I try to let you express your own opinion. But for me, I'm just telling you. For me, honestly, the lens flare bothered me, and I know it's kind of ironic because if you look at my video feed, you're going to see some lens flare, and I can't really help that because I'm on a tight budget. I don't have a studio, and they've got the lights of Starbucks behind me. But in a way, it's kind of appropriate because it kind of looks like the bridge of Abrams' Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and also, I just didn't like. I know 90% of people don't like it because it takes place in a parallel universe and it takes place in the past. And we mentioned together, we're talking about this. The reason why, okay, for example, this new series, this new Star Trek series, is in the 23rd century, 10 years before.
Okay, so we're moving on. We're talking about Star Trek Discovery now. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, the new movies take place before the original series. The new TV series takes place before the original series. Well, why is that? Why can't they move forward? Well, when Paramount and CBS broke up in 2006, certain elements from the franchise were broken up between Paramount and CBS, so none of them can go forward. If they want to go forward, they have to get together again. They have to be one.
Yeah.
But as long as they're split, they can only they're only stuck in the 23rd century.
Well, the one thing, okay, I'll talk about the positive of Star Trek Discovery. I actually like the starship design. I know a lot of people hated it, and I think they're redesigning it. The only problem I had was the blue deflector dish. That looked a little cheesy, and it looked a little bit fake, and looked a little bit like computer CGI. And Brian Fuller, he used to write for Deep Space Nine. And he's just basically, isn't it Brian Fuller is the showrunner for Star Trek Discovery, right?
Yeah.
And so that's optimistic. They're bringing back some of the original showrunners, some of the original show creators who are very loyal and familiar with Star Trek. So that's a bit optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the one key thing that I liked about the press release on Star Trek Discovery, they said that it bridges the gap between the original series and Star Trek Enterprise. And that suggests to me that they're going to fill some of the plot holes or some of the plot threads left unresolved from Star Trek Enterprise when it got canceled abruptly.
Yeah.
And so I'm really hoping that they resolve Future Guy and they continue to, if you don't like I know a lot of the temporal Cold War was very controversial for a lot of Star Trek fans when Enterprise came out. Even if you don't like the temporal Cold War storyline, at least in Discovery they have an opportunity, and I love that it takes place in the Prime universe, not in the Abrams universe.
Mm-hmm.
At least do 1 or 2 episodes resolving the end of the temporal Cold War, and at least we could find out who Future Guy is. And I
Yeah.
suspect that's what they're going to do. And maybe it even involves time travel. That's why the ship. Oh, yeah. Hold on. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm helping her plug in. Anyway, so yeah. So I'm hoping what they do is they resolve the plot threads left over from the Temple Cold War, including figuring out the identity of Future Guy, and maybe it involves time travel. Maybe it's a time ship, and that's why it has mixture. Well, it appears to be a mixture of technology from the time of the original series and Next Generation, or even
Yeah.
maybe First Nemesis. So it could be very interesting. It just depends on the writing and the story.
Yeah, it's just like, oh man, I really want that. I know now they can't go into the future, which is sucks. So we can't have a 25th century Trek or a 26th century Trek. But at least bring in people from the future and having people like maybe the sphere builders or future guy there. That's like a connection to the future, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you could even have a CGI Spock. You can have a CGI Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah. Oh, also they were talking about since all right. Number one, you see, a lot of people ask the question, why does this ship look so much more advanced than the original series, Enterprise?
Yeah.
When this is 10 years before the original series. It doesn't make any sense. Now, there are like so many reasons for this. Number one, some people say, well, the reason why is because Star Trek is a continuously evolving thing. We're updating the aesthetic all the time. So just imagine it always looked like this. Number two, some people say, well, you could just say that maybe it's because of the events of the temporal Cold War that's why technology looks a little bit more advanced. Like maybe some time travelers came back from like the far future, and they kind of helped people build this more advanced ship, and it's just, yeah. So who knows? It could be like, yeah, that's why it's people from the future that helped them build it, and that's why they're probably launching it from a secret place, because they don't want to contaminate the past.
Well, and there was some. Wasn't there a picture that was leaked from Star Trek Beyond production, or it's not Star Trek Beyond? I mean Star Trek Discovery. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But it was the aliens with the Andorians. Isn't there like a red Andorian as a bridge officer
Yeah,
or something like
they're
that?
like updating the aliens, right? And like I know Brian Fuller said, he knows that Star Trek fans don't like change, and I know this more than anybody else. I mean, like they don't like change, and that's okay. That's okay. No, nobody likes change really, but they update the races. They make like red Andorians or something, for example,
Well,
and they don't like it.
I don't find that as an original Star Trek fan, and my favorite Star Trek being Next Generation. I don't object to that, because why not have red Andorians? You have blue Andorians, and you had white Andorians in the episode of Enterprise, and so why not have red Andorians? That's just like there's different colors of humans, like in the human species. There's different colors of humans. Why not have different color Andorians?
Mm-hmm.
So I have no problem with that.
So yeah, they're going to be updating the aesthetic and stuff, but I hope they give a reason why this ship it looks more advanced. I mean, they could say something like, "Oh, it's time travel. It's a time ship," or maybe Daniels brought some technology back to the past, and or maybe it's we can, yeah, like it's the temporal Cold War,
Well, if it's a temporal Cold War, it could be an altered timeline in the Prime Universe, and if it's an altered timeline in the Prime Universe, then that leaves the possibility for anything to happen, and anything could be unpredictable because it's an altered timeline.
Yeah, it's a coexisting altered timeline, which kind of allows the original to exist.
They could bring back the Borg. I really hope that this is another thing I'm hoping. Take some of the season 5 scripts, which was never produced, but they had a bunch of scripts written, and if you retool them for new characters, that's fine. But bring back the Borg. Um, the temporal paradox with the Borg Queen. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
That would really make me wet my mouth. I mean, that's the Borg were my favorite villain from Star Trek, and I miss them. Oh,
I really do. I like the Borg too. They're really nice, and I just don't get it. I don't see the sexual appeal of the Borg Queen. I just don't. I mean,
I think the Borg. I think the Borg Queen is hot. I would definitely tap the Borg Queen. I would
I mean,
definitely tap.
she looks sweaty. She has no
You
hair.
and your sweat, man. You and your sweat. You have a thing against women with sweat.
It's like water that comes from inside their bodies, and I'm like, oh, it squeezes out of the epidermis, and I'm like,
Let me put it this way about the Borg Queen. The reason why I find her hot and very attractive,
yeah,
even though traditionally she wouldn't be, is because she's so badass and she's so confident of herself, and she's got like that cyber goth.
yeah,
She looks like a cyber goth girl, and she's freaking smoking hot. I mean, they had cyberpunk stuff back in the '90s when that movie came out, and it's kind of reflective of that. And there's a hybrid cultural style, with the cyberpunk mixing it with goth, just like there's steampunk goth. There's not just straight steampunk. There's different variants of that fashion of dress.
yeah,
There's certain like computer techie mindset that goes with the cyberpunk stuff as well. Matrix was a cyberpunk movie. So, but yeah, I'm hoping that when they said that they were going to bridge the gap between Star Trek Enterprise and the original series, that made me optimistic that we're going to find out who Future Guy is, maybe resolve the Temple Cold War. I actually liked the Temple Cold War. I found it fascinating. I liked the cloak and dagger kind of feel to it, and I'm like, oh, this is a typical Romulan plot. This is typically what the Romulans do. They don't like direct confrontation. They like cloak and shadow, cloak and dagger behind the curtain kind of thing. They will only do direct confrontation as a matter of last resort.
yeah,
And they'll try to get their enemies to attack first, so that way they can claim the moral high ground. They were like, oh, my enemy attacked me first. Their enemy into attacking them first. And so that's the cool thing about the Romulans is they use their intelligence and their intellect, and they're very analytical in a lot of ways, like Vulcans. But at the same time, they still have emotions. They're very ambitious, very territorial, very imperial. The Romulans in Next Generation and in the original series, they were kind of like they reminded me of like the Roman Empire. Prefect. I am the prefect of the bridge. Our prefect. Was in rank. And sub commander. These are all ranks that harken back to the Roman Empire
oh,
and an organization of Rome and the corruption of Roman power. How Romans, were very intelligent and very intellectual, but at the same time they were very corrupt and very devious and very ambitious, but overly ambitious. And this is what would lead to destruction of the Roman Empire.
oh, okay.
You see that parallel of history. You see it in the Romulans, or at least the way the Romulans were originally portrayed. I hate the way the Romulans were portrayed in 2009 Star Trek, but to me that sucked.
Yeah,
But
it's all rights issues. The reason why they did that, they changed a lot of things for 2009 was because, like I said, CBS owns parts of they own part of the rights, and Paramount owns certain elements of the rights. So Paramount, when they wanted to do Star Trek, they couldn't make Romulans look Romulan because CBS owns the rights to that. So they had to make their own another race of Romulans. Paramount couldn't build ships in space because CBS owns the rights to that. And then when they did Into Darkness, they had to make another race of Klingons because CBS owns the rights to like a certain the look of the Klingons. It's all rights issues. It really is a pain in the neck and the head. It's really
it's too bad. I mean, I think a chance. I would take $2 billion if I had $2 billion, and I would buy the rights to Star Trek back to reconsolidate it. I would fire J.J. Abrams, and I would never allow him to work on Star Trek again. What would you do if you had $2 billion to spare? You were already able to live comfortably, and you had an extra $2 billion, because I estimate that's what the value of the intellectual property rights to Star Trek is $2 billion. What would you do with Star Trek?
I would bring back. Well, what I would do is I would somehow bring Paramount and CBS together. I would get Bryan Singer on board. I would get Ralph McQuarrie on board, and I would get that team who wrote the script for Star Trek Federation, and I would say, let's do it. Let's do a series set way in the future. Like, if you didn't know, Star Trek Federation, like what Bryan Singer wanted to do, he had his series would have taken place like 600 years after, like it would have been like in the year 3000. We would have had a federation that wasn't doing so well. It was kind of declining, kind of like the Roman Empire. And, so like the Federation kind of breaks up because humans have become complacent and happy. They become like kind of complacent and kind of dicks. They're like, oh, like whatever. And then like a bunch of races from the Federation break off because they're like, oh, you guys are a bunch of dicks now. So they become kind of entitled and whatever. So, but then to make matters worse, not only did the Federation break apart, there's this new enemy called the Scourge. They come for Earth, and we're like, oh shit, like we don't know what to do now, because this enemy is so bad. This enemy, if you read the script, this enemy attacks the USS Sojourner and like cripples it, and like kind of like it leaves it. It pretty much destroys. It leaves it a dead Hulk, right? The ship is a dead Hulk, and the only survivor of that massacre. So yeah, the Scourge attack the USS Sojourner. They destroy the ship. Everyone dies. The only survivor, and also it destroys a bunch of colonies. So like they destroy a bunch of Federation colonies, and so this new threat is really bad. So the only survivor from this attack is Lieutenant Commander Alexander Kirk. So this would have been a descendant of the original James T. Kirk. And this guy is kind of like more of a rebel than the original Kirk ever was. This guy has a checkered past. He has an aggressive manner, and he doesn't I don't know. He's kind of like a maverick. He's like the new Kirk actually. So, anyways, he's the only survivor of this. He goes back to Starfleet. He tells them what happened. And like Starfleet, for some reason, there's like a conspiracy inside Starfleet that they're like, what, they don't I don't know why they kick him out. They kick him out of Starfleet for some reason. There's like a conspiracy going on, and so there's like threats from within, and there's threats from without, and like it's really exciting when you read it, and they build. So what they do is, this threat is so big, they build a new enterprise to find out who this threat is and what they want. And this enterprise is like, officially it's to explore strange new worlds, but unofficially it's to defend the Federation from this new threat. And there's like the captain of the ship. What he does is, he goes out there, he tries to find out who this new threat is. He runs into the Scourge. And then the Scourge attack the new Enterprise, and they really cripple the new Enterprise, right? And
the captain. If this is 600 years in the future, would this be the Enterprise J?
No, actually, the Enterprise J was in the 26th century.
Oh, okay.
So this is
so
probably what, I don't know. They just call it the new Enterprise. So like this new threat is so powerful that like it just rips through their shields like they weren't there. Now think about it. Shield technology in the year 3000 would be pretty powerful, but this new threat, it just rips right through them. So the captain is killed. So what they do is the first officer, he retreats, and he kidnaps Kirk, the new Kirk, and then like they kind of make a deal with him, and they're like, we need your help. You gotta like be the captain of this new Enterprise. Like whatever. And he's like, it's kind of like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. He becomes like he doesn't want to join because he knows his heritage. He knows about the original Kirk, and he's like, no, I'm not the original Kirk. I'm not him. I don't want to be. I'm nothing like him. I don't want to be the captain of this new Enterprise. But then later on, he kind of slips into the chair and says, all right, I'll do it. So it would have been awesome, and that's what I would do. I would have this new Kirk, this new Enterprise. Just like try to find out what this new threat is, and and it's just really cool. We have a new Enterprise, we have the future, we have a really dark, gritty threat. I mean, you got to read it, man. I'm going to send it to you, please, man. Promise me you'll read it.
I've read the basic notes on that. I don't think it'll ever happen because that was something pitched 10 years ago. But
yeah.
He pitched that. Bryan Singer pitched that in 2006. I've read the basic notes. You can send it to me again, but I've read the basic notes on that. I mean, it's semi-interesting. I mean, he pitched it 10 years ago, and it's a shame that Bryan Singer didn't have a chance to do that, and that pitch got rejected. Because that was like his replacement pitch for a new TV series to replace the cancellation of Enterprise, and Rick Berman had just got fired. The failure of Enterprise ended up destroying his career, because if you look at Rick Berman's Internet Movie Database, he hasn't done anything since 2005 in movies or in film or TV at all. He's totally off the grid now, which is too bad because I thought Rick Berman was a great producer.
Yeah.
But they have it because at the time the studio CBS was only interested in doing new movies, which they ended up doing with the 2009 Star Trek. They were only interested in doing new movies, but they weren't interested a new TV show. So that's why that got rejected.
I heard it was because J.J. Abrams got there first, and they decided to go with J.J. Abrams' Star Trek instead of Star Trek.
It's such a shame because I really can't stand Abrams as a director. I mean, I know he directed The Force Awakens, and I liked The Force Awakens, but I think it's mainly because with The Force Awakens, he wasn't the executive producer, so he didn't have creative control. He co-wrote the script with Lawrence Kasdan, who had written Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He co-wrote Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and so because they had a good co-writer and they had Kathleen Kennedy as the executive producer, reason why The Force Awakens didn't suck. But I will still say that The Force Awakens had a lot of things in it that were annoying to me that are characteristic of a J.J. Abrams movie. They have plot holes the size of planets. And, he's just a lazy screenwriter. And it's because, in my opinion, it's because he became too successful too quick, and it's like he's not trying anymore. It's like, whatever, I still get paid, and I don't know. I just can't stand his directorial style. Luckily, he was a little bit minimal with the lens flare. He didn't go too over the top with the lens flare in The Force Awakens, but that's another whole story. So we've talked about Star Trek Beyond, and we've talked about Star Trek Discovery. And is there anything else about relating to Star Trek that you want to talk about before we go, Daniel?
I was saying, the Klingons from Star Trek Federation, they were awesome. They were like the real Klingons, in my opinion. I mean, the problem, what I find the problem with, for example, TNG Klingons was, oh, honor, 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 honor. We talk about honor, honor, everything is, and they weren't badass. They weren't like in your face going to rip your head off if you pissed them off because no, that is not honorable. We're not violent or bloodthirsty because that is not honorable. We don't conquer planets because that is not honorable. Honor, honor, honor. And I'm like, oh my god. But these Klingons.
So you wanted the Klingons to be more like a villain again.
I mean, okay, but like saying these new Klingons, they went back to conquest in Star Trek Federation. They went back to conquest, and I like that. And you know what? The admiral lied because for some reason she had to apprise the Klingons about the new Enterprise, and they found out that for some reason the admiral lied to them. So what do? They go crazy. If you lie to these Klingons, they're gonna kill you. They're gonna rip your head off. So that's what it said.
You like the version of Klingons when they were more like a villain.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm like, I just like, oh my god, finally the Klingons have gone back to the old ways, and like, okay.
Okay.
But that's just my thing, and
But I liked Worf. I liked how Worf was. They showed that not all Klingons were bad. As a Klingon in a good light, and an engineer, or she was actually, I think, only half Klingon. The half Klingon engineer on Star Trek Voyager. What's her name?
B'Elanna Torres.
B'Elanna Torres. She's pretty hot.
Yeah, she was. She was nice, and I really want to see Trip Tucker back. I got to see Trip Tucker back in this new series.
But he died. He died.
Yeah, but you can bring him back, like from an alternate reality, for example. Maybe one where he never died.
Or maybe they could freeze his corpse, and then they could use the technology in the future to resuscitate him.
I mean, that could work, and also remember I was telling you. Okay, remember for Star Trek Enterprise season 5, the reason why. Okay. They had so many good ideas for Star Trek season 5, Star Trek Enterprise season 5. It was supposed to deal with time travel, and oh my god, there was supposed to be episodes where the Enterprise was supposed to go into the future, meet Kirk. They were going to meet Picard. They were going to get Cisco. Yeah.
And there's a really big plot hole in Star Trek. You know what that is?
Yeah.
In all the Star Trek TV series.
Yeah.
Why was there no mention of Proxima B? Proxima B is an Earth-like planet that's only 4.3 light years away from Earth in Alpha Centauri system. I'm being silly. Because the writers didn't know the existence of it. They just recently found discovery of a planet that's Earth-size within the Goldilocks zone of a red dwarf star. Miss B. But,
yeah, it was good. So there was like in Enterprise season 5. They were supposed to go into thanks to Daniels. They were supposed to do a Doctor Who crossover in season 5. Yeah. They were supposed to go into the future, meet Kirk, meet Archer. Meet Kirk, meet Picard, meet Cisco and Janeway, and probably go all the way and see the Enterprise J. And my God, we're supposed to see a continuation of the mirror episodes of Enterprise. In the mirror darkly.
That would have been cool.
I still wonder to this day, whatever happened to Mirror Phlox? Did they kill him? Did they throw him in jail? We would have gotten these answers. We would have gotten
the mirror who?
Phlox. The last time we saw him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was knocked out. Yeah. So it was just like, maybe it was, it was a good thing that he didn't get transported back to the other ship, because if he did, he would have been blown up along with it. So maybe it was a good thing. But it would have been so awesome. And also, remember I told you, Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens, they wrote a script bringing back Kirk into Enterprise, but it wasn't the Kirk that we knew. It was the Mirror Kirk. You see, after Mirror.
Yeah.
When Mirror Spock got his Kirk back, he used the Tantalus device on him because he was too dangerous to be left alive.
Yeah, I got it.
So he used the Tantalus device on him, but instead of killing him, it sent him back to the original universe, but 100 years in the past, 100 and something years in the past. So Archer would come across this prison planet, and he would detect a life sign. They beam down, and they find an aged Mirror Kirk, and then Mirror Kirk would have gone up to the Enterprise, and he would have kind of, with Archer, would have tried to get back to his universe. But then they found out that the Mirror universe doesn't exist for some reason, and I don't know. So he has nowhere to go. So I don't know what would have happened. I mean, I assume Daniels would have picked him up and brought him into their future. I don't know, but
he might have. He could have probably done Priceline commercials on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yeah, and I would have loved to have seen Mirror Kirk on the NX-01. It would have been awesome, and So, anyways, that never happened. Maybe they can do this. Maybe they can do this in this new series, because Shatner
Shatner's so full of himself. He wants too much money. I mean, that's the reason why he didn't have a cameo in 2009 Star Trek, is because when it said that when J.J. Abrams approached him, Downey Jr. got $50 million. Why can't I get $50 million for playing Kirk? $1 million just to do a cameo. So of course Abrams said no.
Yeah. But he wants to come back in this new one, and Brian Fuller really wants to bring him on, and they're talking, and Brian Fuller's an Uber geek, and he wants him to come on, and I have a good feeling about this, and he's like, oh, how are we going to do this? If this is 10 years before the original series, how are they going to do this? So they thought, okay, William Shatner kind of threw an idea out there, like, oh, maybe I can come from the future. The same thing with Spock Prime. How he came into the JJ verse? Maybe my Kirk can come in there somehow. But that doesn't make any sense because he died in Generations. There's no way.
Well, he comes from the Nexus. The Nexus is time, so an older version duplicate. He would be a time duplicate. Older time duplicate version of Kirk, right before he died, could come from the future.
Yeah, but they could do the same thing.
Let's say the USS Discovery runs into the Nexus, but in the past. But the Nexus is nonlinear spacetime. It's the looping nonlinear spacetime. You understand? Said the wibbly wobbly timey wimey thing. Time is nonlinear. All moments in spacetime simultaneously exist. We only have a narrow slice, a narrow perspective of view of space-time, and that's the way the Nexus is that all moments in space-time exist, and so there could be a time duplicate if the runs into the Nexus, but in the past, there still would be a future version of Kirk in the Nexus duplicate. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of people have a hard time grasping this. This is all based on theoretical physics.
Yeah,
physics. We can't. I mean, I have a good idea how to build a time machine, but the problem is getting the parts. But the parts would be damn near impossible to acquire. And first problem would be getting the parts to build a time machine, and the second problem would be enormous. You would need the power of 10 cities just to power one time machine. Go ahead.
Dangerous. They'll say it creates black holes that'll destroy the Earth.
Well, okay, well I don't want to get too much off subject, but not if you got into a micro singularity. Micro singularity would have an intense gravitational force, and it would also generate a lot of energy. But if you had proper magnetic containment, it wouldn't destroy the Earth. I mean, micro black holes are said to evaporate all the time anyway. They'll exist for a microsecond and then they disappear. But if you had magnetic containment where you could contain that micro singularity, then you could manipulate it, and then you could even split it in two and have like. Anyway, I should do another whole video. I'm going to do a video also on how to build a time machine, because I'm pretty sure I know how to build one, but like I said, getting the parts and having the amount of energy required and the amount of funding required to build such a machine would be very difficult.
Yeah, but they tried that on the Flash too. Remember, they made a micro singularity, but then it went out of control and it rose up, and then it just became a huge black hole.
Well, the Flash, their time travel logic is just out of whack anyway. It's inconsistent, and the time travel logic conflicts with itself. And so it's just whatever the writers think of that day.
Yeah.
But anyway,
but like anyways, he wants to do that. And we go back to Star Trek. He wants to do that. Shatner said, maybe I can come back through time, and that's how I can run into Discovery. But I'm thinking, what if they could use that idea from Judith and Garfield Reeve Stevens? What if the Discovery comes across a prison planet or something, and then they run into Mirror Kirk, an older Mirror Kirk, and that would be awesome. Having a Mirror Kirk, and they deal with him, and then maybe he can be one of the villains of the show. Maybe at the end of the episode, maybe at the end of the two-parter, he gets away, and he becomes one of the villains of the new show. That would be great.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, I would love that. How long we haven't seen Mirror Kirk for like 49 years.
Well, he died. But
who said that?
Well, I mean, it was mentioned in Deep Space Nine that the Terran Empire was overthrown, and I think a lot of those characters ended up dying.
Well, they can say something like maybe, I don't know, maybe somehow he was
thrown
through time or something. They could say something. I mean, we haven't seen Mirror Kirk.
Yeah, I didn't like the Mirror Universe as much in Deep Space Nine, because once the Terran Empire was overthrown, it was kind of a little bit whatever. Just seems like any other parallel universe.
Yeah, but I heard that the Terran Empire quickly rose again. After it's all because of the Defiant. Remember when Mirror when Mirror what's his name? Well, they found the specs for the Defiant and they brought it back, and then they built their own Defiant, and it was not as perfected as the original one, because this one was kind of wobbly and clunky. But it was just as good. So, they were talking about building a fleet of Defiant ships. And I'm like, wow, that's a good idea. A fleet of Defiant ships. You see, our universe, our Starfleet, our Federation, they were talking about building a fleet of, Defiant ships. But then they were also debating the morality of that and say, oh, then we'll become too powerful and blah, blah, blah. And, we're building a Defiant warship. We're going to be building fleets of warships. And, they're just debating that, and nothing came from it. The Mirror Universe is the exact opposite. They're going to do it. They're going to build a fleet of Defiant ships. And that's why I like the Mirror Universe, is they don't really care about the morality of it. They just want power.
Well, I think we've been on here for about an hour. I want to try to keep this to an hour. So let's wrap up. Is there any final words before we go?
Oh, also, did you know, I read that Nicholas Meyer, Alex Kurtzman has written the first episode of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Nicholas Meyer, Alex Kurtzman has written the first episode, and Nicholas Meyer has written the second episode.
Okay.
So this is exciting, is it not? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is there any mention of cast? Who's going to be the captain? The weird thing is it's supposed to focus around a lieutenant commander, if the captain's not the main character. That's kind of odd. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a person, a woman of color, and this woman. You know, I don't know. She's like a lieutenant commander. I think she'll be below decks. It'll be kind of like Star Trek Below Decks, you know, and
Oh, okay. Not from the bridge, but from below decks. Okay.
yeah. And also, I heard that this is going to be like a Discovery. It's going to be like a bunch of. You see, that's one of the reasons why. That's one of the ways you can explain why this ship looks more advanced than the TOS Enterprise, is because like a bunch of races, like the Klingons and Starfleet, they got together and they built this in secret, maybe because it's like a special ops ship. And maybe they're fixing some of the problems from the temporal Cold War. You know, maybe they're going to be running into Future Guy. Maybe they're going to be running into the Sphere Builders. Yeah. And also, I heard a rumor that they're going to be going into the Kelvin timeline sometime, like in the future.
The Kelvin timeline? What's the Kelvin timeline?
The J.J. Abrams universe.
I just know that as either new Trek or crap. But yeah, okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't really care about that.
If you want to call it Kelvin crap Kelvin timeline, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Oh, also, like, do you know how the original series Klingons, you know how they looked? They had a really nice look to them. You know, they looked just like us, but they were black. And they had like these really weird eyebrows, you know.
Well, they had like olive-colored skin, but yeah.
Yeah, but do you think they're going to appear like that in this one, or do you think they're going to say something stupid like, "Oh, you know"?
Well, that was already explained. The reason why there was a lot of Klingons that looked humanoid, they looked more human, was because they had human DNA in them, because there was the bioweapon that got released on Kronos. This was a whole episode of Enterprise that explained that.
Yeah, and also, you know,
but that's the reason, was they were altered by the virus because the virus had human DNA in it, and it changed their DNA to be more human-like.
Yeah.
But but naturally Klingons have the ridges, so why they look so dramatically different in the Abrams version. They'd have to explain. Maybe it's another virus, but it gets to be silly after a while. But anyway, wrapping up. It's been about an hour, so I need to go. But thank you, Daniel, for hosting the Daniel's Star Trek cast.
Yeah, thanks.
And, do you have an email? If anybody is a fan of your cast, is there an email or any contact information?
My email doesn't work. You know, I tried getting on there, it just won't work.
Okay, well, and I'll relay the message to Daniel. Anyway, this is Steampunk Star Raising Out. Do you have a closing statement or anything like that? This is your...
I'm so excited for Star Trek Discovery. I hope it'll be good.
All right, peace out.